Good evening. I'd like to introduce you to a miracle, the miracle of the Super Zero. I'm about 8 miles off Salcombe, and I was bound for Plymouth for the start of the Jester Challenge, which begins next weekend. It's now Saturday, so I've got a week to go, but I've got some work to do on the boat, some damage to fix and so on. So I need to get there, but I have been becalmed all afternoon. And the forecast told me that there's not going to be any proper wind until lunchtime tomorrow. So normally I would be sitting out here all night, because I only have 10 litres of fuel, and it's not enough to motor all the way to the coast and the little bay outside Salcombe and then get into the marina tomorrow. At least I couldn't guarantee that the engine wouldn't stop. That's not much good. So I would have been sitting out here all night, getting up every 20 minutes, trying not to bump into anything, and I don't fancy that. But I've got my secret weapon. I have my Super Zero. Let me introduce you. This is the Super Zero. It is an enormous, lightweight, laminated sail set on its own furler. Comes all the way back to the spinnaker block. And I put this thing up when the anemometer at the top of the mast was showing 4.5 knots of wind. Now normally this boat won't sail until I get 6 knots, and then we'll just start moving. But we started moving just with the headsail, and then put up the main. There we go, and off we went. Now of course we've got a fair bit of wind, because if you look at the apparent wind, here we go, that is apparent wind of 50 degrees, and it's showing 9.910 knots of apparent wind. But how much of that is forward motion? 3.5. So in fact we've only got just over 6.5 knots of true wind. But this sail is making us go, and that log there is not accurate. We're doing 4 knots, no problem at all. And how about that? The sail was built for me by Crusader Sails of Poole. Let's just go up on the foredeck and you can see it in all its glory. Crusader, Paul Leese has been making sails for me since the 1980s when I had Largo. And he did sorry about the wind noise, he made what's then called a ghoster, which was a laminate sail made of mylar, and the problem was that you had to flake it very carefully. You needed 4 people to do this, and of course I had one person to do it, and I just destroyed it in the space of a year. But it did get me across the Atlantic. This is a much better setup. You just pull a string, whole thing rolls up, pop it in a bag, put it away. And look at that. And don't forget, with this amount of wind, I would just be thinking, is it worth trying to sail? We're making our own wind, and we're going like the clappers, and I shall be in with the anchor down in that little bay, whose name I can't remember. Ooh, a couple of hours. Meanwhile, the sun's shining. Wind generator is now making electricity because we're going into the wind, and so the fridge is nice and cold, and there's a beer in it with my name on it. So thank you very much. Look forward to the next time.